Hello my friends, I decided to make some kind of an experiment and well, I think it is quite unexpected and I don't know what the final result would be, but today we will try to paint this little bust using watercolors. As I told you before, I have never done it on miniatures, but I have some vision of how it could be done. So for these purposes I took this bust. I usually use it for different experiments, and you can see some oil paints stained here. Usually after those experiments I just remove the paint, and now this bust looks like this. But today we will use it for watercolors. And the first thing we need to do, of course, we need to prime it. And if you have tried to use watercolors on acrylic primer or on acrylic layer, you know that it doesn't work. It doesn't work because the acrylic layer has some resistance for watercolors. I have tried different primers on canvases, because you know canvases usually already primed, and they are already primed also using some kind of acrylic primer or other kind of primers. But for watercolors we need a very special primer. And I have found this primer, Schminke, that works great on canvases, but I don't know how it will work on miniature. It has some structure, it has some texture, but I think we will gain some new experience. Okay, let's try. Adding a little bit of water. I think it works even on a layer of oil paint, but seems like I need a larger brush. I'm not very good at watercolors. In fact, I don't use it much, but some time ago I started to make some experiments for my canvases to create some translucent underpainting, underlayer, some sketch, and I decided to use watercolors for these purposes. And I guess I have reached some good results in achieving what I wanted, and it led me to some thoughts that it would be interesting to try some watercolors on miniature. As I told you, this primer has some texture, some structure, and because of that I do not hurry up too much, try not to leave hard brush strokes. In fact, I have no idea what we will get as a result, and I guess I will not paint it from start to finish, but we will try to understand how watercolors could be used. And in fact, as a result, I want to make this watercolor look, maybe with some watercolor stains, but I don't know if we can get them on miniature. This is a bust from Tartar Miniatures from Sergei Savinkov, my friend. So he gifted me some time ago, and I'm using it for experiments, so I'm just an evil guy. I guess that on some clothes, on her jacket, we can have a harder texture, but for now I start to worry about the face, because it has too much brush strokes that I don't want there to be. Maybe it would be better if I just first I primed it with pure white primer from the can, but I decided to leave those colors that left from my previous experiments. I thought that it wouldn't disturb me, but now I begin to worry a little bit. I think that for some hard textured areas you can use this primer and it will work well. So creating some brush strokes and maybe even using acrylics after it oils, I don't know. Need to check. Need to test if it works with acrylic. I guess so, because this watercolor primer, I guess that it is very close to classical gesso ground. Gesso ground consists of there is some addition of gypsum and chalk. So this chalk and gypsum will give you some texture. But for now, somehow, I'd say that we need to create kind of paper texture. Maybe our bust will have a look of, some watercolor picture. I would like to. I don't expect it much, to be honest, but I really would like to. Also, I am not sure for now that we can use only watercolors to finish the bust, and I'm not sure if I finish it, but if I will, I think that I always will try to use a little bit of tempera paints, for example for the eyes, and maybe for some other details. By the way, if this experiment fails, I will also try to post it, because failed experiment gives you sometimes even more experience than you can get, than you could get from successful experiments. Okay, girl, don't let me down. I can see it's already textured as hell. Interesting. But it looks like paper. I really would like to say that it looks like paper, because as I know, sometimes watercolor artists use this ground to fix the mistakes. So for example, you have some mistake on your paper and you want to fix it. You are using a little bit of this ground, removing overlay to make an overlay over your watercolor paint, kind of, and then you can paint with watercolors again. For canvases, well, when I paint quite a large canvases, this texture doesn't matter much. So I just even didn't pay my attention to it. Now I can see how much texture does it create. And yes, of course, I'm not so self-confident today because, to be honest, I just don't know what I'm doing. Well, let's say we are creating a real art. It helps somehow. I guess I'm moving fast to failure, or maybe to inventing a new miniature genre, a watercolor miniature. If you experiment, you should take it quite easy. You should just tell yourself that, okay, it would be a failure, it's okay, doesn't matter. Because still I will get at least some fun, and I hope those who watch this video also will get some fun. And by the way, this is not a drunken master. I'm totally sober. Don't drink too much now. Also, I will try to make good pictures of my results, even if it will be a failure. Maybe, I think maybe even if it will be a failure, maybe it would be more epic video. Dmitry Fisechkov fails. Watch without registration and SMS message. Free videos. Dmitry fails. I'm sorry. Okay, camera. For the underpainting for my canvases, I use quite simple basic colors of watercolors, but I need them to build up the proper layer, because if I start to build up the layer with watercolors are transparent, and then if I proceed to work with transparent oil paint, it creates a really interesting effect. But the bad thing that this effect barely can be seen on photo shots. This effect creates very volumetric lights and colors, because all of those transparent layers start to interact with each other, and the light pierces the canvas and pierces all of those layers, so you can't achieve this kind of effect with just opaque paints. Okay, let's try to wait a little bit, and I also would like to try to remove some of this texture. But I'm a little bit afraid that I will remove too much of the primer, because, to be honest, you should prime it in 3 full layers. So it's kind of a proper way to prime canvases. I think even miniatures, if you are using this. I think I'm the first one who uses this for resin miniatures. But the instruction says, please guys, prime in 3 layers. Just don't want to see how, that watercolors, that the previous layers would resist watercolor and we can't use it properly. Yes, I think that you can remove the texture this way. But you can notice that I already removed some of the primer, so let's just leave it with texture. I guess it will create some interesting look. Or it will not. But who cares? This is not a commission work. This is not the work to please an eye of all of the miniature audience. No, but maybe someone would like it. Maybe even me. For now, I worry the most about the eyes, because the eyes shouldn't have this texture, I'm quite sure. But maybe in future, don't make this mistake and maybe leave the eyes to paint with acrylic paints or whatever other paint you use. I use tempera a lot, not a lot, comparing to oils. About 95% of my miniature painting is done with oil paints, but I use tempera paint sometimes. for some small details. I paint eyes with tempera, some patterns, and I guess that I will need to use it here to paint the eyes as well. Wow. Some close-up. I hope that you can see how much texture do we have. I don't know. Okay, we don't need this. And another thing, to be honest, I lost my ceramic palette for watercolors, so I will use a plate, a ceramic plate as a palette. And of course, watercolors. I don't even know what colors to use to start from, but let's try to make the jacket, the leather jacket first, and I guess we will need a few browns. In fact, we will need a lot of color because watercolor, you know, watercolor paintings, drawings, illustrations, they have this watercolor look when different transparent colors start to interact with each other. And this is the most interesting effect of watercolors. Also, watercolor stains. So let it be our warm side of the palette, and this will be our cold side of the palette, kind of, because you know there are warm and cold colors only in relations. By the way, if I will get some satisfying or kind of satisfying result, of course we will need to fix the layer. And for now I have only one idea. I have a fixer for watercolors that I also used on my canvases. It works well, but it is glossy. But then, if the model will become too glossy, I can use matte varnish. You know how many colors do I add to the palette? I think it happens because of my habit to work with oils. So when I work with oils, I have a palette about 12-15 colors, sometimes 6-8 for limited palette. And I just have this habit to have all of those colors. need to smoke a little bit before starting. Well, as I told you, I have no idea what I will do now. Totally no idea. Okay, at least we can see that primer works. So the primer works and watercolors stick to the surface, and you can see a lot of texture. For now we will try just to add different colors. Make it as very colorful, and I don't know if I can work in using layering technique, because I don't know if watercolors will stick to the surface. I have no idea. Also, I will try to use these sticks to make highlights. This is quite a common technique when you paint watercolors on paper, and maybe it will become a very common technique in new miniature genre. Of course, I'm joking. Not sure if it works, but looks interesting. Why not? I would like to add some blue colors. Ultramarine. Well, it is quite strange for me to work with watercolors on three-dimensional surface. But I would say that the result is very interesting. It is very interesting, and for sure it is not a total failure. It is not a total failure because, for example, I see that you can already use this technique to create some kind of leather textures or some similar texture. As I noticed, watercolors on this primer dries quite fast, and I think this is a good news for you. Interesting. Well, you can notice that we already have these watercolor stain spots. I very like them. Those spots were the reason why I decided to try this. Let us make her a redhead girl. Well, too much saturated for now. For now, sorry. But maybe it will work. Oh, by the way, I have no idea for now how to paint skin. I guess I never painted realistic skin tones with watercolors. You can see that we have no white, so we can work only from the light to dark. And also I heard such things from professional watercolor artists. For example, do not use more than 3 layers, because then they start to become dirty, and of course it depends on technique and the result you want to achieve. But for this very soft watercolor look, I guess we shouldn't use too many layers, too much paint. Okay, I have one thing, a mistake kind of, I don't like. I guess we need to wait a little bit so this layer will dry. Don't ask me why do I use these or those colors, because it's totally expressionism. This is pure art. You will not understand, because I don't understand for myself. I'm just picking up different colors. That I think should work. But in fact, I would even say that I don't think if they would work or not, because it's a really quite expressionistic painting. So this is kind of psychology. I think it just depends on my mood, on my state of mind. Okay, this is very intensive color, I don't need this. Okay, let's wait a little bit so the layer will dry. As you can see, we have a lot of water that should be dried before we can proceed. And I guess I need to try to add some color to face. I don't know. Usually when I paint with oils, I mix some kind of reds with yellow ochre and then add whites, and this is some kind of basic mixture, but of course it doesn't work always, because sometimes you have some, let's say, interesting light conditions, and of course you should start with another basic mixture. But for some neutral skin tone, I would say that it should work. No, it's too intense. Yes, as I thought before, the face would be the most complicated part to make it look at least a little bit realistic, or I don't know, satisfying. Well, drawing time. Mm. Now I'm thinking that maybe I add too much water. you can see that I have destroyed the previous layer, so pay attention that watercolors don't stick enough to so you can comfortably work with layers. You can't, in fact, you can't. But maybe some more drying time is needed. You can see that I'm adding colors one after just very quickly, and so I need to be concentrated a little bit more. In fact, I'm making a video of that just because I was thinking that some of you would like to try something like that, and maybe basing on my experience you will achieve better results. So I think this is the way our world develops. Okay, drawing time. Oh, by the way, we have some small details. Camera, I don't know, let's mix ultramarine and some Van Dyke brown. To make a black, kind of, not black, but dark mixture. I think I will glue it to the miniature because there is no need. This is hell to paint it like that. I guess I need a black color because for now I really miss it. Ivory black. So now I will try to add some details. You can see that if I dilute the paint too much, it starts to remove the previous layer. So for now we need to try to work with kind of undiluted or not so much diluted paint, adding shadows, but I really would like it to have more colors. And in fact it is not so bad that it removes the previous layer a little bit. Well, I would say that at least I have spent about an hour, I guess. Yes, 1 hour left. And in hour, this is a very good result. Because about 20 minutes were spent just to prime it. For example, on the stage we could use some kind of varnish and then proceed to work with acrylics, for example. I think it will save you a lot of time. Maybe I will leave it somehow like that. I will try to work more, then I will make a pictures and show you also this process and ask your opinion. Interesting. Okay, for now I think I will use this kind of technique for some textured clothes. I really do like it. Okay, drawing time. One of the reasons why you couldn't do it using your acrylic paints, because acrylic paints are almost all they opaque. They have opaque pigments, so it doesn't work like you just add more watercolor and the paint becomes transparent. No, there are two kind of pigments, one of them transparent and others are opaque. Not only pigments but the way they used in paint, well, it's quite complicated, but the transparent paint and opaque paint are very different. They differ a lot, so it wouldn't work with acrylics the same. I very like how this bluish accent accidentally appeared, and I would like to make it here, but I don't know how. Uh, Colors. Okay, now it looks like some impressionism already a little bit. Well, I just can't avoid mentioning Alfonso Geraldes that have made a lot of experiments like that, but I guess using acrylics, but maybe not only acrylics, but I have to refer to him. I guess we have quite a similar vision about miniatures as an art. Also, one thing that I have noticed is don't worry that some paint looks too dark when you lay it down or too much saturated, because when it dries it loses some saturation and becomes a little bit lighter. I want to create some highlights here, just removing the paint with water. Also, to be honest, I'm a little bit afraid to proceed with the face, because female face should be very soft in all of color transitions, and I have no idea how to make it softer. I like those watercolor splashes, kind of brush strokes, but I have no idea how to make the face. Well, let's make lips at least. Beautiful red lips. I think I have added too much reds on this part, well, and maybe too much blue on this part, because to be honest, it looks a little bit dirty, maybe even not a little bit, but quite dirty. But sorry guys, I told you this is an experiment. Of course, I have some experience of using watercolors on paper and using watercolors on canvas. Kind of my own invention. Not so many people use watercolors on canvas. you should know a lot of things. What primer use, how to use it, how to dry the layer, and how to fix it properly. I also want to make watercolors to mix themselves on the surface of the miniature. It will create a lot of interesting color variations by accident. Well, I think maybe I should stop about 15 minutes ago. It starts to become quite dirty. Because I started to use less diluted watercolors. And they already become too dark. You know, our tonal composition became too dark for watercolors, for watercolor look. Should have more white, more lights. And also I can't work with light colors. I have an idea to try, but I will do it later. For now, let's build up this pure watercolor layer. also I would say that maybe Rodrigo Chacon from Spain have inspired me to do this. He even doesn't know. He just posted some of his watercolor works and they are amazing. I very like them. And right after that, well, I had this idea of using watercolors for several years, maybe. I guess many of you had such ideas too. But to finally try it, I decided after I have seen Rodrigo's watercolor paints. Well, now I guess it is evident that we can make a face kind of realistic, but we don't need to. I will just try to make something expressive. let's wait a little bit till the paint layer will dry, and then I will show you it, and I guess I will finish for now. I guess I need some time to think a little bit how it can be used, what can be changed. So I guess it was still successful experiment. It was still successful experiment because it already led me to some interesting thoughts, at least of painting textures. Well, maybe you know that I don't paint textures like dots or something like that. I try to use different brushes, for example, like this one, and when you use it with oil paint, you can quickly create any kind of texture. Like this one, you will get little dots, or just use brush strokes. And now I'm thinking about watercolor textures, but you should use this primer. Okay, the result is somehow like that for now. Don't pay attention to the face. I don't think that it works nice with face. Maybe I will try to paint it later with oils. And of course, I need to use highlights, of course, still adding highlights, maybe with oils, just adding the highlights with oils. I don't want to use acrylics, maybe tempera paints will work, I don't know. For now I will leave it this way and will try to share the results with you. Okay, thank you.